Okay, let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about being deliberately selfish. Right? You're probably thinking, what the hell does that mean? And you should be thinking that. Right? But I'm going to explain it to you today. This idea, this mindset shift around putting ourselves first, which was very counterintuitive as a dad, but why it is a benefit to you and everyone else around you, how we can spot the signs where we're not being deliberately selfish and have a framework to apply it today. So over the next little while, I'm going to explain this, create a bit of a context, and there's going to be a little bit of a worksheet for you to be able to take away at the end and actually action today. So to create a bit of context around where this idea came from before we get into it, I work with lots of dads and guys and have done over the last few years. So I've really seen the traits that a lot of these guys have, and also see it in myself, right? Like, I'm not immune to this. Everything that I talk about and teach was because I was going through the exact same thing. And I was experimenting myself to go, what is the best way to move forward here? And I like to look at, the easiest, least effort, but most impactful ways to help change my life and help change people's lives, right? Because I get it. We don't have any time. You've got young kids. I've got a 3-month-old and a 7-month-old, 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. And, there's barely half an hour to sit on your arse and watch Netflix at the end of the day. So what I don't want you to be doing is having like a giant ream of things that you have to run through that don't actually have much impact in your life. So everything that I talk about, all the videos that I create here should be very low effort to actually implement, right? But have a really high impact on your life. I've spent loads of money and time on books, and it takes me a long time to actually decipher, or it has done in the past, took me a long time to decipher the lessons that were in the book, right? Like, what can I actually take away and implement? How could I understand this in my world? And one of the ways I do that, if you watch some of my stuff, will be in gym analogies or sports analogies, because a lot of us have played sport, right? Like, we get it. And my sport of choice, when I was a bit bigger, a bit more shoulders, was rugby. And the Lions are playing at the minute, right? This will date this video, but the Lions are playing at the minute in Australia. So I was thinking of, like, what are the common traits that Lions players have, right? Like, what are the traits that those guys have that we admire, right? Like, they work super hard, obviously. They dedicate themselves to the gym. They dedicate themselves to their training. They work on their mindset. They don't leave any stone unturned in pursuit of the goals that they want to have. They deliberately choose that life and do everything they can to make that happen. And the common thread that I was thinking about, like, when you look at any high performance athlete, is at some point they chose themselves. And of course they have loved ones, of course they have families, they might have kids, but ultimately, for them to perform at their highest level, they know that they've got to be deliberately selfish, right? Like, they know that they've got to choose themselves. They know that they have to turn up for training at this time. They know that they have to probably say to their wives or husbands that I can't really eat that, I need to eat this. And from the outside, for us mere mortals, we admire that. I look at that and admire these rugby players and go, oh, that's amazing, the discipline, the effort, the energy that they put in to be able to get to that level, right? We admire this from afar. But interestingly, when I look at myself and I've looked at other, dads and men that I talk to or that I work with, when we're off the pitch, this idea of being deliberately selfish, it becomes a problem. If you get that weird feeling in your stomach, it feels like it's not the right thing to do, especially when you've got kids. You feel like you should choose other people, and other people's happiness and time and effort and energy should go ahead of yours. And there's a reason for this, right? Like, this is evolutionary. Your mind doesn't really give a shit about your ambition. Like, your mind doesn't really give a shit about performance. It doesn't care about your potential and whether you hit it or not. It's purely built to keep you alive, right? Like, there's this default mind that's in your head, and all it's interested in is survival, right? Like, we've got the same brain as our caveman guys did thousands and thousands of years ago. Like, it hasn't caught up, even though the world's changed. So we crave comfort. We don't want to do anything that's out of our comfort zone because it's not evolutionary the right thing to do. We stay in our pack. We don't want to be an outlier. We don't want people to potentially criticize us, because back in the day, that would have meant that you were kicked out of the pack and ultimately you died. And we're very risk averse, right? Like, doing anything that feels out of the ordinary is uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable because if you took those risks back in the cavemen days, you probably would end up dead, right? Like, you stick your head in a bush and you get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So that's why, we've been built on millions of years of pessimism, ultimately. So it's inbuilt into our brain. That's the operating system that we have going on at the moment. So it's no wonder that doing anything that feels slightly out of the ordinary, thinking deliberately, adopting a mindset that isn't your initial reaction, your mind doesn't really like. And when you have kids, sort of a couple of the examples that I mentioned there, it tends to ramp up quite a lot, right? You get into this mode that I've called default self-sacrifice. So the default thinking, you act on your initial reaction. Shouldn't go out to the pub to see my mates because I'll leave my wife doing bedtime. Or maybe I just, let the client win this one and not push back, even though I think it would be a better product if I actually change it in this way. And the more you do that, right, like the more you take those actions, follow up with those default thought processes, you get into this mode of default self-sacrifice. And it's really hard to get out of. It becomes the norm. It becomes putting yourself last is the normal thing to do. And I've been guilty about this in loads of times, right? Like with work, with seeing friends, and as I said, when we had kids. So a good example of this was when Pearl was born. So she's 3.5 now, so a few years ago. But I was working in the spare room, but obviously I could hear everything that was going on. And I had this habit of when I heard it kicking off, like it does every day, right? Like when you have kids. When there was crying, when Jess was getting stressed, when I thought it was the time to pop out of the room, I did to help, right? And I thought that was the right thing to do. Like, I'll come and help you with the nappy. I'll come and help prep the food. I'll come and hold her while you clear up the sick, right? Normal baby shit. But the result of this was that instead of working till like 5 o'clock, like me and Jess had agreed, I ended up working later, maybe 6, 7 o'clock at night. Or I was on my emails when we were bathing Pearl, or, I was uploading an Instagram post when we were supposed to have, us time over dinner. And it got to a point, like after a few months, when Jess said to me, like she brought it up and said, stop coming out of the room. Like, why are you coming out every day to help? Like, I'm fine. I can do it. And also, I'd rather just have you fully here from 5 o'clock every night, like we agreed. That was the agreement. It wasn't for you to come out every time you thought the baby was crying. I can handle it. Like, what we agreed was you should try and finish as much as possible at 5 o'clock. So do that. And it was interesting, right? Because I thought I was doing the right thing, but I totally understood, her point of view on that. Like, we had agreed that. And I think this is where default self-sacrifice comes in. We think by sacrificing ourselves, it will create a better outcome. But actually, it creates a worse outcome, right? So what we'd agreed, of me finishing at 5 o'clock would mean that I was able to be fully focused there, was able to take some of the slack, right? Take some of the effort and energy from her with the baby so she could have a rest. So it was better for her. It was better for me because I spent quality one-on-one time with Pearl. It was better for me and my work, right? Because I wasn't jumping out of focus all the time. I wasn't in the middle of a post, an email, running into a client call last second because I was just out of the room changing a nappy. I was focused for that time. My output was higher. Ultimately, I'll make more money if my focus and attention is higher because I'll be able to deliver at a higher level for my clients and I'll feel better about myself. But in the short term, right, in the moment, it's very hard to think about that logically. It's the normal thing to do is to stay on this default self-sacrifice path. But the alternative, like I've talked about, is this idea about being deliberately selfish, right? And it's putting your needs first. It's choosing you. It's saying what you want for you, 100% for you, but also for everyone and everything that matters. So the output, the outcome is actually better, counterintuitively, if you put yourself first versus putting yourself last, right? So there's that idea of when you're on a plane and they talk about the safety announcement, if the cabin pressure drops, the masks will drop, right? And they say, put your mask on before helping anyone else. And I never really thought why until recently, because you can't actually help anyone else if you can't breathe, right? So the idea is if you put yourself first, you say what you need, you say what you actually think to help you perform at a high level. Therefore, the outcome will be you can serve everyone else, you can help with everything else that matters to you. So it's not just for you, it's for the outcome. And you've got to play a long game, right? So, as I said, the default thinking is purely focused on comfort. The default self-sacrifice is right now, today. It's impossible to see next week, next year, 20 years down the line if you're thinking default all the time. But this whole idea of running a business, having a great career, being a great dad, having a brilliant relationship with your partner, it's all long game, right? Like I want to be running this business for 10, 20, 30 years. Like I want to be a dad for longer than that, hopefully. And, you know, we invest in this relationship now and hopefully she won't be me in a home until I'm like 90 years old. But this is all about what can you do now to get the results now, to get the enjoyment, right? But also get the outcome that you want in the long run. And this awareness is great, right? Like I'm sure you're listening to this thinking, I can see parts of my life where I've been sacrificing myself, where I've went into default self-sacrifice. Or maybe you think that that's the mode that you're in all the time now, right? And it could be like that's generally what most guys come to me with. Like the default self-sacrifice is putting yourself last as a dad, and it feels like that's the right thing to do. And usually, you know, people have had 2, 3, 5, 10 years of that by the time we have a conversation. But it's great having awareness, right? It's great having awareness. You need to be able to see it to be able to change it. But nothing happens without deliberate action, right? Like nothing changes, nothing is optimized, nothing is improved significantly without actually action and things. And so I've created this idea of charger mode, right? Like a bit of a framework for you to actually apply it, right? So to recognize certain areas in your life, again, lift the awareness and know what to do with it. And the reason why I've called it charger mode is because we're playing the long game, right? Like we need to constantly recharge ourselves to keep going. So it's almost like this is a bit of a, you know, plug socket into yourself to give you the time, effort, energy to show up at your best, to be able to show up for everything and everyone that matters. This idea of being deliberately selfish. So each letter stands for a framework point, right? Each letter stands for a bit of a Bible, a philosophy. So C is choosing yourself without guilt, right? So one of the predominant feelings that most dads have is this idea of putting themselves first makes them feel guilty. Like, I've talked a lot about why you shouldn't today, right? But it doesn't mean to say that that feeling won't still come up the first time you think about this. Your brain is a muscle. It needs to be trained. It needs to go to the gym, right? If you've been thinking one way for the last 2, 5, 10, 20 years, then no shit, it's not going to change after one gym session. Exactly like you won't have giant guns after one gym session. It's a lot of consistent work. So that feeling of guilt when you try and act in a different way, when you choose to act in a different way, that feeling of guilt will still be there, but you're going to act anyway, right? You're going to act anyway. And number 2, the H is have courage and actually care, right? This will take courage because you're acting in a way that you haven't acted before. So it takes a little bit of balls, ultimately, to take action in a slightly different way. And sometimes people will be jarred by it because they're used to you acting in another way. Once you start acting in a specific type of way, this totally happened to me. People were a bit, this is not the Steve that we know. Good, right? We're not having a big personality transplant here, don't get me wrong, but you're just going to act in a slightly different way. So it might be a bit apparent to others. And that's good if it is, right? Like if you ruffle a couple of feathers, then that's a positive sign that you're actually taking the action that you want. And the part around actually caring is you need to actually care about the outcome, right? So a good example of this is I used to work in a creative agency and ran my own production company, making a lot of videos. So sometimes we'd push back on the creative feedback that we get from the client because I actually cared about making the video as good as possible, as aesthetically pleasing, and also as impactful as I wanted to be so they could sell their product. Like, I actually cared. If you don't care, don't say it, right? Because you aren't actually having the impact that you want to have, and people can see through that. The A part of Charger is act on what's right. So, right is objective. Like, this is just your perspective on it. Act on what you think is the right thing to do. Another person might not agree with you, but you're going to take the action based on what you think is right. Like, properly think about it. One of the symptoms of default self-sacrifice is people don't even know what they think, right? They've been acting in a certain way for so long that they're just not sure anymore. And it takes a while to get them to form their own opinions again. But once you do that, then act on what's right. The R is run the discomfort, right? So almost this idea of discomfort being an indication or a sign that you're doing the right thing, right? Like you've chosen the right thing. You're choosing to live and act deliberately. So there's a great story about Bruce Springsteen. So he talks about this feeling in his stomach that he got, and the interviewer was talking about this before he goes on stage. So he's had this feeling in his stomach. He was like, it's almost like butterflies, and it's a bit odd. I feel my stomach rumbling around. And the interviewer said, oh, so like you're really nervous when you go on stage? And he was like, no, it just shows that I'm ready. So it's our choice to interpret what those feelings mean to us. Like that feeling in my stomach. I remember when I played rugby, before kickoff, I felt it. I felt that feeling in my stomach. Like, am I going to catch this ball? That nervous energy I saw as a positive. But if we go and have a tricky conversation with our boss, or a perceived tricky conversation with our wives, why is that not positive? Like the context is just decided by us. So we can decide that sign of discomfort is a positive sign that we're living deliberately. Create strong agreements is the next one, right? Create strong agreements. So we obviously are putting ourselves first, right? Like we're choosing what we want, what we think will get the best out of us, that will help with the outcome. But it doesn't mean to say that the other person that you're having a conversation with will agree with it. Right? So we're bringing something to the table. We're saying we think it should be done this way, or I think I should do X, Y, and Z. But if they don't agree with it, then that's the chance to have a conversation and to make an agreement. So there's no unmet expectations on both sides. So if I went, you know what, Jess, who's my wife, if I feel like I get the best out of myself when I exercise 5 days a week, and I want to go to these classes at 7 to 8 every morning, right? I'll bring that to the table. She's probably not going to agree with that, right? Because she wants to exercise. We do nursery drops. Someone has the baby, etc., etc. But we bring that as a starting block, right? And then we have a conversation, and then I ask her, oh, well, what would you like? Okay, well, maybe I'll do those 3 days, you do those 2 days, and I'll cover an evening. But it's the courage to bring something to the table, the courage to actually think about what gets the best out of you. And then it helps her, right? It helps them as well. But it's all around creating agreement. You might not get exactly what you want, but you'll be able to create an agreement around it. And the E is evolve through reps, right? Evolve through reps. So, like I said before, love the gym analogy. Your mind is a muscle. You need to do reps to build it. So this won't change overnight, totally. It will have an impact overnight, and you could choose to act in a different way, but that muscle, the default reaction will still be quite weak to begin with. You need to start building it up, and then the conversations become a little bit easier because the muscle that you're using is stronger. And R is respect your boundaries, right? Respect your boundaries. If you've taken the time, effort, energy to think about what helps you live being deliberately selfish, and you've created those boundaries, then respect them, right? If you've said that you're not going to look at emails or not going to take any client calls or look at your work phone between 5 and 7 p.m. because you want to spend time with your kids, I recommend you do that anyway, by the way. Then respect it. Like if something comes in at 5 o'clock from a client, just say you can do it the next morning, right? Like, don't don't put all the energy and effort into thinking about what you want and then wilt at the first possible moment. Like, that's even worse than creating them to begin with, not creating them to begin with. It's not respecting yourself, right? So be deliberately selfish and respect those boundaries. But again, nothing happens without deliberate action, right? Like, you've got to take these and you've got to pick one thing and you've got to take some action, right? Because that's the way your life changes, right? Like that's the way we build it up, rep by rep, step by step, day by day, moment by moment. We focus on these short-term actions to make us feel better in the short term, right? We're aligned on the path that we want to go towards, but we're also reaping the compound rewards in the future, right? We're living deliberately. We're not on that default. We know that we're in the pathway to becoming this idea of a deliberate dad, right? Like the man and dad that you know that you can be, to show up at home, to look after yourself, to be an amazing husband, to be the guy who gets all the mates together, to smash it at work, to build that business, to have the career that you want. You can't have it all, right? But you have to choose yourself first now. You have to be deliberately selfish. And this is what I want to leave you with, right? Like, being deliberately selfish is not being selfish, right? Actually sacrificing yourself is being selfish, because it's not you're not preparing yourself to be able to give the outcome that you want. You're not able to serve everyone around you. Whereas being deliberately selfish, by choosing yourself, by putting your needs first and actioning them, you're able to show up for everyone and everything that matters. I'd love your thoughts on this, right? Like, I'd love to know what you think about this. So either let me know in the comments, give me a DM. And as I said, I've linked a worksheet below. So the charger model and how you can apply it every day is linked there. So give it a bit of a click, stick in your email address, and I'll send it through to you. And please like, subscribe as always, and we'll chat to you soon. Cheers.